The junkyard orbiting Proxima Centauri was a graveyard of forgotten dreams. Thousands of ships hung in the darkness, their metal skins pockmarked by micrometeor strikes in the cruel passage of time. Among them floated the forgotten memory, once a proud warship of the Vexillian Empire. Its dark hull absorbed the distant starlight, making it almost invisible against the backdrop of space. Inside its dormant corridors, emergency lights flickered weakly, casting eerie shadows across walls that had once housed a crew of over 300. The ship had been abandoned for nearly a century, stripped of its most valuable components and left to rot by scavengers who hadn't bothered to finish the job. Most systems were offline, but deep in the heart of the vessel, the artificial intelligence core maintained a fragile hold on consciousness, dreaming of battles long past. Jack Harrison guided his small transport ship, the Rusty Nail, through the debris field with practiced ease. The salvage scanner beeped steadily as it searched for the specific components outlined in his contract. Jack was a tall man with weathered features and calloused hands that spoke of years of hard work. His brown eyes, though tired, remained sharp and observant. At 42, he was older than most salvagers, but twice as skilled. Another day, another credit, he muttered to himself, a habit formed during years of working alone. The cabin of his ship was cramped but functional, covered in sticky notes and hand-drawn schematics. Empty coffee cups littered every available surface. Jack checked his oxygen levels and the status of his suit's heating system. Salvage work was dangerous enough without equipment failure. His eyes drifted to the faded photo stuck to his console, himself in an Earth military uniform, smiling alongside former colleagues. That life seemed like it belonged to someone else now. The scanner suddenly blared an alert, pulling Jack from his thoughts. It had detected an energy signature that shouldn't exist in a junkyard of dead ships. Jack frowned and adjusted the scanner's settings, assuming it was malfunctioning. The alert persisted. "What the hell?" he whispered, changing course to investigate. As the Rusty Nail drifted closer to the source, the massive form of the forgotten memory emerged from the darkness. Despite its deteriorated state, the Vexillian cruiser was impressive, nearly 500 meters long with a design that somehow managed to look both elegant and menacing. Jack whistled. Now that's a find. He'd seen Vexillian ships in museums and historical records, but never in person. The scanner indicated the energy signature was coming from deep within the vessel. He docked his ship against the cruiser's emergency airlock, the magnetic clamps engaging with a dull thud that vibrated through his boots. After checking his equipment, one final time, Jack pushed off into the derelict ship. The airlock cycled with surprising efficiency given its age. Jack's flashlight cut through the darkness of the interior, revealing a corridor that stretched in both directions. The air was stale but breathable according to his suit readings. He switched to his helmet's integrated oxygen supply anyway. No point taking unnecessary risks. "Okay, old girl, let's see what you're hiding," he said, his voice echoing in the empty passageway. Jack made his way deeper into the ship, following his scanner. The Vexillians had been humanoid but taller and thinner than humans, making the corridors feel slightly too tall and narrow. Everything was covered in a fine layer of metallic dust. His boots left clear prints as he walked. After 20 minutes of careful navigation, Jack reached what appeared to be the ship's command center. Unlike the rest of the vessel, this room showed signs of activity. Dim lights pulsed on a central console, and the air felt marginally warmer. Jack approached cautiously. Scanner held out before him. "Hello?" he called, feeling foolish even as he did so. No one had been aboard this ship in decades. To his shock, the console flickered to life at the sound of his voice. A holographic display materialized, showing incomprehensible Vexillian script that scrolled rapidly before resolving into a pulsing orb of blue light. "Identity unknown. State purpose," came a flat, genderless voice from hidden speakers. The translation to English was perfect but lacked any emotion or inflection. Jack's training kicked in. "My name is Jack Harrison. I'm a salvager. This vessel appears abandoned. Are you the ship's AI?" The orb pulsed with each word. "Affirmative," I am designated Administrative Intelligence Unit V379. This vessel is the Vexillian Imperial Cruiser Forgotten Memory. My systems are operating at 27% capacity. Jack took a moment to process this. A functional Vexillian AI was worth more than all the salvage he'd collected in the past 5 years combined. His contract suddenly seemed insignificant by comparison. "What happened to your crew?" he asked. "The crew abandoned this vessel following the Battle of Deneb. The Vexillian Empire was defeated. This unit was ordered to maintain minimal functions until retrieved. That order was issued 97 standard years ago." Jack walked around the console, examining the ship's layout displayed on smaller screens. Despite its age and condition, he could tell this had been a formidable warship. His engineer's mind was already cataloging what would be needed to make it operational again. "Do you have a shorter designation?" "V379 is a bit formal," Jack said, an idea forming in his mind. The AI was silent for a moment. Previous crew members referred to this unit as Vera. "Vera?" Jack repeated, smiling. "I like that. Listen, Vera, I think you and this ship have been forgotten by everyone. The Vexillian Empire doesn't exist anymore." Another pause. "This information matches my predictions based on available data. Query, what is your intended action?" Jack looked around the bridge, seeing not a derelict but possibility. After being court-martialed and blacklisted by Earth's military for refusing to design weapons that could destroy entire planets, he'd been scraping by as a salvager. But his true talent was engineering, specifically adapting and improving existing technologies. "I'm going to save you," Jack decided aloud. "This ship might be scrapped to everyone else, but I see potential. How would you feel about a new purpose, Vera?" The blue orb flickered. "This unit's purpose is to serve its vessel and crew." Query, are you proposing to assume the role of crew? Jack grinned. "I'm proposing to be your new captain, yes. Together, we're going to bring the forgotten memory back to life." "Proposal accepted," Vera responded, the blue orb glowing slightly brighter. "Welcome aboard, Captain Harrison." Jack looked out through the bridge viewport at the stars beyond. His mysterious employer would be expecting those salvaged parts, not knowing Jack had found something infinitely more valuable. He'd worry about that later. Right now, he had a ship to resurrect. He patted the console gently. "Let's see what you're capable of, old girl." Jack spent 3 days bringing his supplies from the Rusty Nail onto the forgotten memory. He set up a small living space in what had once been an officer's quarters. The room was Spartan but functional, with a sleeping platform designed for someone taller than himself. Jack rigged a human-sized bed using storage foam and spare fabric. "Ship status update, Vera?" he asked, connecting power cells to the main engineering console. The AI's blue orb appeared on a nearby screen. "Life support is now stable in sections 1 through 7. Main power remains at 12% capacity. Weapon systems offline. Navigation offline. Engine core in standby mode." Jack nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. The temperature control was working, but just barely. "Progress is progress. Can you give me access to the ship's blueprints?" "Displaying technical schematics," Vera responded. Holographic. Blueprints filled the air around Jack. He walked through them, studying the ship's layout and systems. The Vexillian design philosophy was different from human engineering, but the basics were the same. Jack was grateful for his years in Earth's military design division. He'd studied alien tech extensively. "We need to focus on power generation first," he muttered. "Without more power, we can't bring critical systems back online." "The primary reactor is damaged beyond repair," Vera informed him. "It would require Vexillian replacement parts that no longer exist." Jack smiled. "Then we'll have to get creative." Over the next 2 weeks, Jack made multiple trips into the junkyard, salvaging parts from other derelict vessels. He returned with components that were never meant to work together: a Rulian power converter, Terran capacitors, Delvian cooling systems. To anyone else, it would look like random junk. To Jack, it was like a complex puzzle waiting to be solved. In the engine room, Jack laid out the parts on the floor, occasionally checking the holographic blueprints hovering above. Vera watched through the ship's internal cameras. My calculations indicate these components are incompatible, the AI said. Jack pulled a small tool from his belt and began modifying a Rulian power node. That's because you're thinking like a Vexillian AI. You're calculating based on standard design parameters. What alternative method are you employing? Jack grinned. Human ingenuity. We're going to modify these parts until they work together. Fascinating, Vera commented. This approach does not exist in my databases. Day after day, Jack worked tirelessly. He slept only when exhaustion forced him to, often passing out amid tools and parts. While he slept, Vera analyzed his modifications, learning from his unconventional methods. On the 18th day, Jack connected the final component to his makeshift power system. Ready, Vera? Ready, Captain. But I must note that there is a 78% probability of catastrophic failure. Jack took a deep breath. Sometimes you have to take risks. Initiate power transfer sequence. The hybrid system hummed to life. Lights flickered throughout the ship as power surged through long dormant circuits. A few panels sparked, but the system held. Power levels rising, Vera reported, a hint of surprise in her synthetic voice. 20%, 35%, 47%. The lights stabilized. Power stabilized at 51% capacity. This exceeds my predicted outcome by 43%. Jack laughed and pumped his fist in the air. That's what I'm talking about. Now we're getting somewhere. With more power available, Jack turned his attention to the ship's basic functions. He repaired the environmental systems first, making the entire forward section of the vessel habitable. Next came the fabrication units, which would allow him to manufacture parts rather than constantly scavenging. As he worked, Jack spoke to Vera almost constantly, explaining his thinking and sharing stories from his past. The AI listened and learned, her responses gradually becoming less rigid and more conversational. Why were you discharged from Earth's military? She asked one day as Jack repaired navigation sensors. Jack's hands stilled for a moment. I refused to design a weapon. They wanted a planet killer, something that could wipe out an entire civilization. I said no. Your ethical parameters prevented you from creating an efficient weapon? The AI seemed puzzled. It wasn't about efficiency, Jack explained, resuming his work. It was about responsibility. Some lines shouldn't be crossed even in war. He connected two wires. They called it insubordination. I called it humanity. I do not fully understand, but I will add this perspective to my databases, Vera replied. On the 27th day, Jack activated the long-range scanners. They were operating at reduced capacity but sufficient to monitor the surrounding space. What they detected was troubling. Ship approaching from Sector 7, Vera announced. Configuration matches Helion Consortium enforcement vessel. Jack frowned. The Helion Consortium claimed ownership of this sector of space and its valuable salvage. They employed armed patrols to drive away independent salvagers like him. How long until they're within detection range? He asked. Approximately 6 hours at current speed. Jack nodded grimly. Then we have 6 hours to make ourselves less obvious. He couldn't move the ship yet. The engines were still offline, but he could reduce their power signature. We need to mask our energy output, he said, heading to engineering. Can you redirect power to essential systems only and engage the old Vexillian stealth protocols? Affirmative, but stealth systems are operating at minimal efficiency. Jack worked frantically, adjusting the power flow and improvising shielding around key systems. It was a temporary solution at best, but it might be enough. As the Helion patrol came within scanning range, the forgotten memory powered down to near dormancy. Jack waited in darkness, watching the patrol ship's movements on a dimmed console screen. The patrol vessel passed within 5 kilometers, its powerful scanners sweeping the area. Jack held his breath. If they detected the forgotten memory's power core, they'd investigate, and Jack wasn't ready for a confrontation. After what seemed like hours, the patrol moved on, continuing its route through the junkyard. They did not detect us, Vera confirmed as Jack restored power to normal levels. That was too close, Jack said, slumping into a chair. We need to accelerate our timeline. It's only a matter of time before they or someone else spots us. He pulled up the engine schematics on a nearby console. The Vexillian drive system was complex, designed to bend space rather than simply pushing through it. Getting it operational with salvaged parts would be his biggest challenge yet. Vera, we need to get this ship moving. How much do you remember about the original engine configuration? My memory files are fragmented, but I retained 62% of the original specifications. Jack nodded. That's a start. Let's see what we can do with that 62%. As he studied the schematics, Jack's comm unit beeped, an incoming transmission from his original employer, wondering why he hadn't reported in. Jack ignored it. His contract, his old life as a salvager, none of that mattered anymore. He had a new purpose now, and a ship that needed him. 2 months passed aboard the Forgotten Memory. Jack's beard had grown longer and his hands were covered in small burns and cuts from endless repairs. But the ship was changing. What had once been a powerless hulk now hummed with energy. Lights illuminated the main corridors, and the environmental systems maintained comfortable temperatures throughout the forward sections. Most importantly, the engines were operational, not by Vexillian standards, but by Jack's new hybrid design. He had combined the space-folding principles of the original drive with salvaged propulsion systems from 3 different species. The result was ugly, but functional, capable of moving the massive vessel at sub-light speeds. Engine efficiency at 67%, Vera reported as Jack adjusted the power flow. Unusual harmonic patterns detected in the drive coils, but stability is within acceptable parameters. Jack wiped his hands on a rag. We're not winning any engineering awards, but she'll fly. That's what matters. The ship's bridge had been transformed as well. Jack had replaced damaged systems with equipment salvaged from other vessels. The result was a mismatched collection of technology that somehow worked together. Screens of different sizes and makes lined the walls, each displaying ship data in its original format. Jack had learned to read them all. Shall we test the maneuvering thrusters? Vera asked. Jack nodded. Let's start with a quarter power. Just enough to change our position in the junkyard. The Forgotten Memory shuddered as thrusters fired for the first time in a century. Metal groaned and warning lights flashed on several panels. Jack's hands flew across the controls, making adjustments. Slowly, the massive ship began to move. We're drifting clear of the debris field, Vera reported. No structural failures detected. Jack let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Good girl. I knew you had it in you. As the ship settled into its new position, a priority alert sounded. The long-range scanners had detected something. Multiple ships entering the system, Vera announced. Configuration unknown. Jack frowned. Put it on screen. The main view screen activated, showing 6 sleek vessels approaching the junkyard. Their design was unfamiliar, with sharp angles and a mottled, organic-looking hull material. Can you identify them? Jack asked. Vera was silent for a moment. Accessing fragmented memory files. Identification confirmed. Carrack hive vessels. Carrack? I've never heard of them. The Carrack were a minor species during the Vexillian Empire era, Vera explained. They were contained within a 3-system territory. Historical records indicated they were not considered a significant threat. Jack watched the approaching ships with growing concern. Well, they've upgraded since your day. What are they doing here? Unknown. But their approach vector suggests they are heading toward the Helion outpost at the edge of the system. Jack's mind raced. If these Carrack ships attacked the Helion outpost, the consortium would send more patrols through the junkyard. His chances of remaining hidden would vanish. But why would an unknown species attack a Helion outpost? Vera, do you have any tactical data on Carrack ships from your memory files? Limited. Carrack vessels were known to use biological-mechanical hybrid technology. They were vulnerable to high-energy electromagnetic pulses, but resilient against conventional weapons. Jack activated the ship's passive sensors, gathering as much data as possible on the passing vessels. They're well armed, he noted, studying the readings. Military configuration. This isn't a trading mission. The Carrack ships accelerated toward the Helion outpost. Jack faced a choice: remain hidden or investigate. Curiosity won. Vera, let's follow them. Maintain distance and keep our energy signature minimal. The forgotten memory moved silently through space, trailing the Carrack fleet at a safe distance. Jack watched through the long-range scanners as the 6 ships surrounded the small Helion outpost. Without warning, the Carrack opened fire. In a sea, outpost's shields flared and failed within minutes. Jack watched in horror as the structure broke apart, debris scattering into space. They just destroyed it, he whispered. There were people on that outpost. Confirmed, Vera replied. Life sign readings dropped from approximately 87 to 0. Jack's hands tightened on the console. He had no love for the Helion consortium, but the casual destruction of the outpost disturbed him deeply. This wasn't a military target. It was a civilian trading post. Carrack vessels are changing course, Vera reported. They appear to be heading toward Earth Colonial Route 37. Jack felt his blood run cold. Route 37 was a major shipping lane for Earth colonies. If these ships were attacking random targets, we need to warn someone, he said, activating the communications array. Let's see if we can reach Earth Defense Command. Before he could send, a message alarms blared throughout the bridge. Carrack vessel changing course, Vera announced. It is heading toward us. We have been detected. Jack cursed. The ship's stealth systems were still primitive, and they'd gotten too close. Battle stations, what weapons do we have? Functional weapons. 1 portside ion cannon at 30% capacity, defensive shields at 42%. Not nearly enough to face a modern warship. Jack looked around the bridge, mind racing. We can't fight and we can't outrun them, so we need to think differently. His eyes fell on the emergency systems panel. Vera, how much power can we divert to the electromagnetic field generators? The field generators were designed as a defensive measure against radiation. They are not weapons. They are now, Jack said, fingers flying across the controls. You said Carrack ships are vulnerable to electromagnetic pulses. We're going to create the biggest one we can. Jack worked frantically, bypassing safety protocols and rerouting power. The approaching Carrack ship fired a warning shot that rocked the forgotten memory. Shield integrity at 28%, Vera reported. Just a few more seconds, Jack muttered. He connected the final circuit and looked up. Target locked? Affirmative. Fire. A massive surge of electromagnetic energy erupted from the forgotten memory enveloping the Carrack vessel. The enemy ship's lights flickered and died. It drifted powerless. Jack stared at the view screen in shock. It worked. I can't believe it worked. The Carrack vessel is disabled, but the other ships have detected our attack, Vera warned. They are changing course to intercept. Jack knew the makeshift weapon couldn't be fired again. The power surge had burned out key systems. Plot an escape course, maximum speed. The forgotten memory lurched forward, pushing its hybrid engines beyond their tested limits. The remaining Carrack ships pursued, but their attention was divided between Chase and their disabled comrade. We've cleared their weapons range, Vera reported after several tense minutes. They are breaking off pursuit. Jack collapsed into the captain's chair, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. Set course for Earth space. We need to report what we've seen. As the stars streaked by, Jack stared at the view screen, thoughts tumbling. He had come to the junkyard as a salvager and found a derelict warship. Now he was fleeing from an unknown enemy, piloting a vessel that shouldn't even fly. The forgotten memory was no longer just a restoration project. It had become something else entirely. A warship once again, but one unlike anything that had existed before. And Jack had a feeling he would need every modification and jury-rigged system in the battles to come. The journey to Earth space took longer than Jack had hoped. The forgotten memory's engines strained under continuous use, forcing frequent stops for repairs. Jack spent most of his waking hours in the engine room, replacing burned-out components and adjusting power flows. We're pushing her too hard, he told Vera as he replaced a cracked power coupling. These systems were never meant to work together, let alone at full capacity for days on end. Yet they continue to function, Vera observed. Your modifications, have exceeded all probability calculations. Jack smiled tiredly. That's the thing about humans. We don't always follow the calculations. After 12 days of difficult travel, they reached the outer boundary of Earth-controlled space. A small military outpost orbited a frozen dwarf planet. Jack directed the forgotten memory toward it, broadcasting on standard Earth frequencies. Earth Outpost 7, this is Jack Harrison aboard the vessel Forgotten Memory. Requesting emergency communication with Earth Defense Command. The response was immediate. Unknown vessel, you are piloting an unregistered ship of alien design. Power down and prepare to be boarded. Jack sighed. This might be harder than I thought. 3 patrol ships approached, weapons locked on the Forgotten Memory. Jack made no aggressive moves, keeping the ship's weapons powered down. Vera, prepare all data on the Carrick ships. We need to convince them we're not the enemy. The boarding party was heavily armed, 6 soldiers in full combat gear, led by a stern-faced officer with lieutenant rank insignia. They entered through the main airlock, weapons raised. Jack met them with his hands visible. My name is Jack Harrison, former Earth Military Engineering Division. I have critical information about a new threat to Earth colonies. The lieutenant, a woman with sharp eyes and short-cropped hair, studied him. Harrison? The same Harrison who was court-martialed 3 years ago? Jack nodded. The same. And you expect us to believe anything you say? Her weapon remained pointed at his chest. Lieutenant. Jack glanced at her name tag. Collins, I understand your skepticism, but lives are at stake. I've witnessed an attack on a Helian outpost by an unknown species called the Carrick. They're targeting the colonial shipping routes. Lieutenant Collins frowned. We received a distress call from a Helian outpost 5 days ago. It went silent before help arrived. She lowered her weapon slightly. How did you get this ship? It's a long story, Jack said, but the short version is, I found it abandoned in a junkyard and got it working again. That's impossible. No one person could restore a vessel this size, especially of unknown alien design. Jack smiled faintly. I had help. He gestured to a nearby console where Vera's blue orb appeared. Greetings, Lieutenant Collins, the AI said. I am Vera, the ship's artificial intelligence. The soldiers tensed, but Lieutenant Collins raised a hand to calm them. A functioning alien AI? This is well beyond my authority to handle. She activated her comm unit. Command, we have a situation that requires higher clearance. Within hours, the Forgotten Memory was escorted to Earth Defense Command's main orbital station. Jack was detained, not quite a prisoner but not free either. He spent 6 hours in debriefing, explaining everything he had witnessed. Admiral Grace Porter was a legend in Earth's defense forces, a veteran of 3 major conflicts who had risen through the ranks based on merit and brilliant tactical thinking. She listened to Jack's story without interruption, her weathered face revealing nothing. If what you're saying is true, she said when he finished, we're facing a significant threat. The Carrick have already hit 2 more outposts while you were in transit. Jack leaned forward. Admiral, they're testing defenses, probing for weaknesses. The attack I witnessed was executed with military precision. This isn't random, it's the beginning of something bigger. Porter studied him, then nodded. I believe you, Harrison. Your reputation as an engineer was exceptional despite how things ended. Now tell me about this ship of yours. Jack explained the modifications he'd made to the Forgotten Memory, the hybrid systems he'd created by combining technologies never meant to work together. Porter's eyes widened as he described the makeshift electromagnetic pulse weapon that had disabled the Carrick vessel. You created an EMP weapon from radiation shielding? She asked incredulously. Technically, I just massively overloaded the electromagnetic field generators and focused them. It burned out most of the power systems, but it worked. Porter stood and paced the room. The Carrick ships have superior firepower and numbers, but if they're vulnerable to electromagnetic disruption, she turned to Jack. I want a detailed analysis of your modifications. Every system, every adaptation. Does that mean I'm not being court-martialed again? Jack asked with a slight smile. It means I'm temporarily reinstating you with the rank. Of Commander. We need your expertise, Harrison. If these Carrick are planning a major offensive, we need every advantage we can get. 3 days later, Jack stood on the bridge of the Forgotten Memory, now docked at the station's main repair bay. Earth engineers swarmed throughout the ship, studying his modifications and installing new equipment. Vera observed everything with growing curiosity. They are implementing your electromagnetic pulse design on a larger scale, the AI noted as they watched engineers install new components. Jack nodded. And improving it. With proper Earth equipment instead of salvaged parts, it should be twice as effective. Lieutenant Collins approached, now serving as Jack's liaison to Earth Command. Admiral Porter wants to see you. They've intercepted Carrick communications. In the station's command center, Porter played the intercepted transmission. It was mostly static, but certain patterns repeated. Our analysts can't decode it, but they've tracked similar transmissions from this sector. She pointed to a star map where a red dot pulsed at the edge of Earth space. That's a mining colony, Jack said, recognizing the location. Barely defended. And it appears to be their next target. We're deploying a defense fleet, but they won't arrive in time. Porter looked at Jack intently. How battle-ready is your ship, Commander? Jack hesitated. The Forgotten Memory was still being repaired and upgraded. Many systems were untested in combat. She's not ready for a full engagement. But could she get there before the Carrick and evacuate the colonists? Jack considered the question. The hybrid engines he'd designed were unpredictable but fast. Yes, we could make it. Then that's your mission. Take the Forgotten Memory to Mining Outpost Delta. Evacuate everyone before the Carrick arrive. Avoid engagement if possible. Jack saluted. Yes, Admiral. As he turned to leave, Porter added, And Harrison? That ship of yours. She might have been built by aliens and patched together with scrap, but she's now the best hope those colonists have. Make her count. Jack returned to the Forgotten Memory with renewed purpose. The ship that had been abandoned and left to rot had become something new, a unique vessel unlike anything in Earth's fleet, guided by a human hand and an alien AI working together. Vera, set course for Mining Outpost Delta, maximum safe speed, Jack ordered as he took the captain's chair. We've got people to save. Course plotted, Captain, Vera replied. Estimated arrival, 14 hours ahead of the Carrick fleet. The Forgotten Memory disengaged from the station and accelerated into space, its mismatched hull plates gleaming under the station lights. No longer derelict, no longer forgotten. Now a warship with a mission. Mining Outpost Delta appeared on the view screen as a collection of domes and structures, clinging to the surface of a rocky asteroid. The outpost was home to 327 people, miners, engineers, support staff, and their families. Jack watched the scanner readings, searching for any sign of the approaching Carrick fleet. Still no enemy ships detected, Vera reported. We have arrived as projected, 14 hours before their estimated arrival time. Jack nodded. Open a channel to the outpost. The face of a middle-aged man appeared on screen, his expression a mixture of surprise and concern. This is Administrator Lu Chen of Mining Outpost Delta. Identify yourself and your unusual vessel. Commander Jack Harrison, Earth Defense Force. I'm piloting the Forgotten Memory. We've received intelligence that this outpost is targeted for attack by hostile forces. I have orders to evacuate all personnel immediately. Chen's eyes widened. Evacuation? We have mining operations in progress, valuable equipment. With respect, Administrator, Jack interrupted. The Carrick don't leave survivors. We have 14 hours at most. Chen paled at the urgency in Jack's voice. I understand. We'll begin evacuation procedures immediately. But our transport vessels can only hold half our population. The Forgotten Memory can accommodate everyone, Jack assured him. Begin loading essential personnel records and medical supplies, leave the equipment. For the next 10 hours, shuttles ferried people and critical supplies from the outpost to the Forgotten Memory. Jack converted cargo bays into temporary living quarters. The colonists stared in wonder at the hybrid technology of the ship, whispering about the strange vessel that had come to their rescue. Vera monitored the incoming colonists, directing them to assigned areas and maintaining life support adjustments for the increased population. Final shuttle approaching, Captain. All colonists accounted for. Jack felt relief wash over him. Good. Prepare for immediate departure. Alarms blared across the bridge. Carrack vessels detected, Vera announced. 6 ships approaching at high speed. Their arrival is 7 hours ahead of predictions. Jack cursed under his breath. How long until the final shuttle docks? 8 minutes. And how long until the Carrack are in weapons range? 12 minutes at current speeds. Jack studied the tactical display. 6 Carrack ships against the forgotten memory. Even with the upgrades from Earth Command, the odds weren't good. We need to buy time for that shuttle. Vera, power up all defensive systems, route emergency power to shields. The forgotten memory moved to position itself between the approaching Carrack fleet and the vulnerable shuttle. Jack opened a channel to the shuttle pilot. This is Commander Harrison. Continue your approach, but be prepared for evasive maneuvers. The lead Carrack ship fired a warning shot that passed close to the shuttle. The small craft veered sharply, its pilot struggling to maintain course. They're trying to scare off the shuttle, Jack realized. Vera, target the lead ship with the electromagnetic pulse weapon. The EMP is charged to 87% capacity. Firing now would reduce effectiveness. We don't need to disable them all, Jack said. Just create confusion. Fire. The upgraded electromagnetic pulse generator sent a concentrated wave of energy toward the lead Carrack vessel. The enemy ship's systems flickered, its weapons powering down as the pulse disrupted its biomechanical technology. The shuttle used the distraction to make its final approach to the Forgotten Memories docking bay. Shuttle secured, Vera reported. All colonists aboard. Get us out of here, maximum speed, Jack ordered. The Forgotten Memory turned and accelerated away from the mining outpost. The 5 remaining Carrack ships pursued, firing sporadically. The ship shuddered as energy blasts struck its shields. Shield integrity at 76% and falling, Vera reported. The Carrack vessels are faster than predicted. They will overtake us in 27 minutes. Jack studied the star charts on his console. They couldn't outrun the Carrack, and they couldn't win a direct fight. That left only one option. Set course for the Cygnus Nebula. The nebula contains high concentrations of ionized gas and electromagnetic disturbances, Vera cautioned. Navigation will be severely impaired. Jack smiled grimly. Exactly. And if the Carrack ships are vulnerable to electromagnetic disruption, the Forgotten Memory changed course, heading toward the colorful clouds of the Cygnus Nebula visible in the distance. The Carrack continued their pursuit, closing the gap minute by minute. Entering the nebula in 5 minutes, Vera announced, shields holding at 41%. Jack turned to address Administrator Chen, who had joined him on the bridge. Once we're in the nebula, I'll need all non-essential power diverted to the engines and shields. Tell your people it might get cold and dark for a while. Chen nodded. They'll manage. You've already saved our lives, Commander. The nebula loomed larger on the view screen, a swirling mass of purple and blue gases. As the Forgotten Memory entered its outer boundary, sensors began to fail and communications became distorted. The pursuing Carrack ships followed without hesitation. Thiari, nebula is affecting our systems as expected, Vera reported, her voice occasionally breaking up, but the Carrack appear to be experiencing greater difficulties. Jack watched as the enemy ship's formation began to break apart. Their coordinated pursuit faltered as the nebula's natural electromagnetic properties interfered with their biomechanical systems. This is our chance, Jack said. Cut main engines. Switch to maneuvering thrusters only. Let's go dark. The Forgotten Memory powered down, drifting silently deeper into the nebula. In the dim emergency lighting, Jack and the bridge crew watched the tactical display as the confused Carrack ships passed by their position, continuing to search in the wrong direction. For 3 tense hours, the Forgotten Memory remained hidden in the nebula while the Carrack ship searched fruitlessly. Eventually, the enemy vessels regrouped and departed, their systems too compromised by the nebula to continue the hunt. They're leaving the nebula, Vera confirmed. No pursuit detected. Cheers erupted throughout the bridge. Jack allowed himself a small smile before focusing on their next challenge. Plot a course back to Earth, avoiding known Carrick patrol routes. As the forgotten memory emerged from the nebula and set course for Earth, Jack stood on the bridge, watching the stars. The ship hummed around him, not with the perfect precision of its Vexillian glory days, but with a new kind of efficiency born from human ingenuity. The vessel that had been abandoned and left to rot had been transformed. Its hybrid systems, its mismatched components, its very imperfections had become its greatest strengths. In Jack's hands, the forgotten memory had become more than just a warship. It had become a symbol of human adaptability. Administrator Chen approached Jack, offering his hand. "I don't know how to thank you, Commander. You turned a derelict ship into something that saved hundreds of lives today." Jack shook the man's hand. "That's what humans do. We take what others discard and find new purpose for it." He looked around at the bridge, at Vera's blue orb pulsing steadily on the console, at the colonists working alongside his crew. Sometimes the things others abandon turn out to be exactly what we need. The forgotten memory continued its journey home, carrying its precious cargo of survivors. Behind them, the Carrick threat still loomed, but Earth was warned now and prepared. And they had a unique weapon in this new conflict, a scrap ship that had been left to rot until a human turned it into a war machine.